Destiny, I'll talk to you about something for a minute or two. What is your deal with veganism? You talked to vegan gains for a bit. Are you still doing the whole social contract, even if it justifies genocide?
I'm sorry, Destiny.
Social contract doesn't justify genocide.
Well, sorry, you were saying it's about accepting a social contract, right?
Basically, the way that my personal moral system works, because I'm somewhat of a nihilist, I don't think most people would be comfortable sharing my moral system, but I'm big on reciprocated values.
Sure.
The genocide meme came out of an example that Vegan Gains used that I guess in retrospect I shouldn't have let him use it because most people misquote the fuck out of it, but it has to do with the idea that I would be okay wandering around genociding like native tribes that hadn't contacted people yet. But in the hypothetical example, the philosophical people that were postulated were literally like subhuman people that were incapable of ever being nice to outside people. Like these are people that would, if you landed on their island, they would cut you up, eat you, and that, like these were the examples given. And I don't believe that any human being is intrinsically incapable of acknowledging like the right for another human to exist.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's people who aren't directly attacking you, but who can't reciprocate the social contract, and you don't want to kill those people, right?
Generally not, no. Because if I'm not directly interacting with other people, I wouldn't want other people to kill me for that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying it's a bit more, you don't accept just ability to reciprocate social contract
For me
alone,
personally,
or sorry,
Jen,
inability, as grounds for killing something, obviously. So we can point to a case where you don't.
Yeah, maybe it's more about capability. I mean, the next step that you go here is arguing that most animals we eat as herbivores, right? I understand that.
Because look, I'll also just do you the respect of leveling with you and not having just a logical back and forth and just tell you what I actually think. I think that you are not a psychopath. I think you're a reasonable guy. I think that you're a smart guy, and you'd sooner defend a consistent position that sounds totally insane than actually be inconsistent and get caught on an inconsistency. But I don't think that your deepest value actually, if you really think about it, is going to be something like ability to reciprocate social contract.
Okay, I'm glad you think that of me, because you have a much higher opinion of me than I do of myself, so thank you, buddy.
Steven, can I ask how honest you are about that?
About?
Because like, your position sounds a little bit dishonest.
I know it does, but I don't prefer to get into the anecdotal stuff, because then you're going to ask me a bunch of really insane questions, and I'm going to give you answers that I believe to be true, but you're going to disbelieve them, and you're going to think I'm engaging in motivated reasoning. So going into the anecdotal things doesn't work, right? Because you're going to ask questions like, well, if you ran over an animal with a car, wouldn't you feel at least a little bad?
No, I don't mean in that regard.
Wait, sorry. We can all totally level that we can't prove your subjective mind.
Sure, but this is why, like, I just prefer to engage. I just like to lay out the arguments, and then we can attack the arguments. But when people start engaging me of like motivated reasoning, well, if my reasoning is flawed, which it might be. I mean, the vegan argument is really hard. I mean, you can point that out, but like when people are like, "Do you really believe this?" It's like, dude, there are people that really believe that fucking Obama was born in Kenya. Like, I can believe my positions on morality without it being too unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I've taken some flack for this, but I've said that you actually maintained a consistent position in that debate. Now, it could be that there's other levels of inconsistency that just haven't been revealed yet. But, I mean, if you're going to actually bite the bullet on killing humans who can't reciprocate the social contract, I will say that's a consistent position. I just don't totally buy that. And even, like, just a few minutes ago, when I put a little pressure on it, I'm like, but really, though, we can find people who they're not reciprocating the social contract, but you don't want to just fuck them up for no reason.
I don't. So first of all, just to be clear, I like to just say reciprocated values. I don't like to use the word social contract because I think that's usually associated with like government theory and stuff, which is way outside of anything that I'm capable of discussing. But just for purposes, because inevitably somebody will hear this and be like, "This isn't social contract." I get a lot of people that say that, and that might be true. I don't know. I guess like it's. Yeah, I mean,
just when you say reciprocated values, there's two kind of things you could mean, or maybe there's more. I don't know, but it seems like you could mean a being that's just by virtue of whatever is happening, they just happen to be reciprocating your values, or you could be talking about beings that consciously comprehend and reciprocate your values. So I think there's a tiny bit of almost like a bait and switch. Again, not like ascribing any intention to you. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it seems almost like you're saying, okay, let me take a minute to just clarify my thoughts.
Well, I mean, I understand the distinction you're drawing here, because if I say it has to be a conscious process, then I save myself from animals that would never harm me, like herbivore animals, right? But if I say it can be an unconscious process, then we've exposed a flaw, right? Well, how can you justify the murder of a herbivore?
And the thing is, you have to be willing to say, oh, well, it's just, even if they're unconscious and it's reciprocating, you have to say that to cover all humans, but that will cover animals. So you see the little dilemma.
So this is kind of like, and I'm not a fan of discussing these positions because a lot of them are very emotionally charged, but like so the big difficulty in arguing meat eating versus veganism is that you have to find a bar that every human can pass that no animal can. I'm not actually interested in that. Exactly. I think that there are some humans, and I would argue that we already do this in society. I would argue that there are humans that don't pass that bar that I'm okay not yielding moral consideration to, but I would argue that we already don't do that in society to some extent, that there are humans that are of sufficient developmentally delayed statuses that we actually treat as subhumans, right? We don't grant them autonomy. We assign them caretakers. We don't let them make decisions.
Yeah, we don't stab them to death. Sure. But no, I'll agree that, and if someone's condition gets bad enough, like you and I aren't going to diverge on things like thinking euthanasia is moral, are we?
That euthanasia is moral?
That it's at least morally neutral.
Well, I would argue, we have to define.
I don't think it's wrong if someone's suffering brutally, it's horrible, there's no getting out of it, they make a rational choice to die, they can't kill themselves. You don't deny, for example, that that's moral, right?
I'm just making sure I'm not getting lost in double negatives. So I would clearly state if somebody wants someone else to kill them for whatever reason, I think that's okay. You can make that decision.
I agree.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah,
so I'm just a random area to go to, but I don't think we'll disagree that there's some conditions where it's okay to kill a human. We'll also agree there's some conditions where it's okay to kill an animal. It's just about, you totally hit what is for me the nail right on the head when you talked about, it's about drawing a line based on some consistent principle. And the reason it has to be a consistent principle is because if it's an inconsistent principle, someone can just say, well, I'm going to be inconsistent and treat you like shit. So it makes no sense. So you have to draw some kind of consistent line. It's very hard to find a way to place that line that covers all humans we want to cover. The literally all humans in all situations is like a straw man. I know you're not using that.
Yeah, sure.
But obviously we know there's those cases like just war or brain dead person or whatever, euthanasia. So, yeah, I think that's actually a genuine problem. And I don't know how you would draw that line in a way that excludes farmed animals. I really genuinely don't.
Yeah, for sure. And I can understand that. And like
I don't think that even does it for you, really.
Yeah, maybe. Like I said, I guess like the main reason why I wanted to debate Vegan Gains was because I saw that he debated 2 or 3 other people and they were just fucking so stupid. Oh my God. One was that Brooks guy, the no bullshit dude, and the other was someone else, and I don't know. And the thing that irritates me is that meat eaters are oftentimes incredibly dishonest and incredibly inconsistent with the way that they treat animals. And it always bothered me that meat eaters are very, very kind and extend so much consideration to pets, to household pets, but absolutely zero or anti-consideration to like farm animals. So that inconsistency is something that I pointed out. I always said that if most people were to be forced to adopt like philosophical principles, that I think most people would wind up as vegans. That's a position that like in 100 years, this sounds really extreme to say, but I think we'll look back on veganism the same way we look back on like slavery and stuff, that people would wonder like, how the fuck could we ever condone like harvesting and murdering so many? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I really want to say to that is, can't you be the guy to put yourself a step ahead of someone like Sargon who says that and doesn't act? Can't you be the one? Don't ever compare me to Sargon. I can't even believe you would even consider
That's why I'm saying it.
So I like the problem is that
he made that exact same statement, Destiny, and he won't act on it.
Well, I don't know what Sargon. First of all, I'll make this statement. Sargon probably doesn't even have like a set of ethics or moral positions thought out. Like the guy's a fucking brain dead.
I'm just saying what he has said. Just to be totally clear, he said, we'll look back, we'll think it's horrible, we'll think it's like slavery.
Oh, sure, okay, yeah. He's probably quoting somebody else. I hate Sargon. The way that, for me personally, I am... when I try to like build morals out of principles or out of like, I guess, axiomatic truths or whatever, like I'm very nihilistic in my approach to things, more so than most people. So I don't think this will ever necessarily apply to me, if that makes sense. But I acknowledge that I do it on a level that most people don't. I have a really, really hard time getting to an area where I respect any other human life from a rational point of view at all. Because when you start going down the veganism versus meat eating or whatever route, you run into like nihilistic properties very quickly. So like for an example, if a lot of vegans will define like sentient life as life that's worthy of being protected. If you ask why to that almost ends up being like an axiomatic thing. Well, why should we respect, right? And like these are really hard things. Like, well, we should respect conscious creatures. Okay, well, why? You know, what is even consciousness? Like, I don't even know if I believe in...
Destiny, I'll let you keep going. I just
go for it.
That, like, I'm totally on the same page as you. Like, we would both agree morality is fundamentally subjective. It's bootstrapped by some base level value axiom. Like, I totally... Yeah.
So building vegan values out of that kind of like nihilistic black hole is literally like, I need to generate some way to respect the life of an animal that will never benefit me, never respect me, never do anything or interact with me on some conscious level ever. And that's a really hard thing to do unless you can assign some magical property to, I say magical, that sounds disrespectful, but unless you can assign some property that is worthy of moral consideration to all animals. And it's really hard to do from like that kind of like nihilistic area.
Okay, no, I totally, I get what you're saying. What's a good way to put this? I think that you're overlooking a really easy, intuitively easy way for us to do that, which is we all intuitively already believe in some kind of ethics for humans. And
but so like intuition is something that I attack like hardcore. Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, one sec. With the intuition, I'm not saying that the morality should be based on intuition. That's just a point about how psychologically easy it is to accept. But I was also going to make the statement that we have we could say like logical propositions about how we should treat humans on the table that generally speaking, basically all humans accept. Like you shouldn't commit needless murder. So I could get you to veganism pretty much just from those principles. I think that the problem is when you look at it like there's this nihilistic void, how do you bootstrap rights for animals? That problem, it would seem just like that for bootstrapping rights for humans from an alien perspective. It always seems like that, trying to like bootstrap rights for something you don't intuitively have a lot of concern for. It would feel like that actually for a human who's a psychopath trying to bootstrap rights for other humans even. But the point that I would make is that if you have some like propositional beliefs about morality on the table for how you want to be treated, I think that you can get to veganism following from that.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, so here,
I guess like I have no value whatsoever for intuitive feeling, I guess. Like whenever I make any of my arguments, I very much reject. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying because the only reason I mentioned intuition, I mentioned two things there. First, the intuition, then the actual logical like propositions we have on the table morally that we can agree on. The intuition bit was just about how easy it is to psychologically accept. That wasn't actually a point that we should value something just because it's intuitive. It's just how easy it is to spread.
Okay. But even the easiness to spread is an idea because there's a lot of ideas that we have to fight now. Well, I don't know. It's hard. Like sexual dimorphism. Like how hard do we have to fight against this versus how much is intuitive, right? The idea that somebody could be gender fluid or transgender is an idea that is very easy to reject, like probably from even an intuitive standpoint. But that doesn't necessarily make it a moral option, right?
But why are you talking about whether something being intuitive makes it moral? I'm not saying that.
I'm sorry. I guess I was speaking more to your idea of like the propensity to spread the idea to other people. That sounded like the second part of what you brought up, or did I misunderstand?
No. This first part was I was talking about if it's intuitive or not, and that how intuitive it is. That tells you how easy it's going to be to spread. The second part was just about like we actually have propositional moral beliefs on the table that we
gotcha. Okay.
And that's kind of the important part. Like just forget about how intuitive it is or how psychologically easy it is to accept or any of that. Just let's like drop that. In fact, also, you and I could probably talk this for a long time. So you tell me when you want to talk to Maddie. Is he still in here?
I don't know where he was.
No, he's actually gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
Wait, what do you mean?
His phone wasn't working.
What the fuck happened to that guy? Okay, well, I don't know. I'll go back and forth with you on this if you want for a little bit, unless you get bored or have to go do something. But my basic thing would just be you totally nailed it with the drawing the line thing, and it's just if you're saying, for example, a human shouldn't be stabbed to death needlessly, when you say it's okay to do that to an animal, there's implicit in what you're saying that an animal is actually different from a human in some kind of way that justifies that. So it's just a matter of what is that difference, and if we apply it to humans, would it actually justify the treatment for humans?
Well, like, so I feel like my response to that would be like, so I would never think that stabbing another human is a moral decision, because I would never want another human to stab me. In terms of like, I would never stab an animal because I wouldn't want an animal to stab me. That's not a type of, I guess like moral exchange that could ever happen with any animal, except for maybe dogs. I guess like they're kind of like the one special exception since they've been bred to be alongside us for so often, but. I don't know, like these are the kinds of like deals or exchanges that can never be made with pretty much any animal.
Is there some property that's true of an animal that if true of you would make you say, I don't actually deserve a right not to be stabbed? So
this is the reason why, well, I don't want to say this is the reason, but like because I use a reciprocated system, I don't think that any property is relevant to anything else. So like it's really the only property I guess I would be concerned with is the ability for it to reciprocate something. Like I don't think killing a human is wrong because the death of a human is morally wrong or that human life should be protected or regarded. It's more the idea that if I say it's permissible to kill other humans, then what is to keep me from being killed? That's the only thing that matters. It's not any type of intrinsic value or property that belongs to humans. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can actually get under that and throw you back into the property thing by pointing out that the ability to reciprocate is actually a property. So if you're saying that the property that makes it okay to kill some beings and not others is the ability to reciprocate, then what would logically follow from that is it's fine to just kill any being that can't reciprocate morality. And you can bite the bullet on that, but that would justify killing any innocent person, even if we scale their sentience up to a point that their consciousness is more valuable than the totality of humanity over all of history to the power of infinity. The fact that they can't reciprocate the social contract, that would be just fine to kill that person. So that seems to me like...
Can you give me an example of a person like that? Or what do you mean by that?
Well, no, it's just like a hypothetical condition. Right?
Yeah, no, but like even the hypothetical. Wait, so there's a person who is so intelligent or has a consciousness that exceeds all of humanity?
I'll go like step by step.
Okay.
If you're saying that the property that makes it okay to kill some beings and not others is the ability to reciprocate, then as long as we don't have the trait ability to reciprocate in the organism, we could scale something like its sentient experience up infinitely, and it would, in your view, have to be okay to kill that thing because it doesn't possess that property that you're saying you care about.
Sure, but what can you tell me what I would disagree with here?
Well, it seems to me like you probably wouldn't want to kill a being that's infinitely more sentient than the totality of humanity just because it can't reciprocate the social contract.
Well, why not? If I don't value that sentience, I don't even know if I believe in sentience, but let's say that I do. If I don't value that sentience at all. And also, I guess, like, to be clear here, like, I would regard these acts as morally neutral. So I wouldn't necessarily, because a lot of people seem to think that I'm, like, advocating for people to go out and murder animals or murder other life forms all the time. Like, I would regard the act to be morally neutral. So, I mean, if this is something that yielded, like, a great benefit to the rest of mankind or something, I mean, I would even argue that even if this wasn't sentient, that this would be morally wrong to kill us. Like, it would be morally wrong to destroy the atmosphere, even though the atmosphere isn't sentient or anything.
Yeah, I would argue that probably the reason you care about the atmosphere is because it affects sentient life.
Yeah.
And that's why you wouldn't care about the atmosphere on Venus or something. You don't care about the global warming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, this creature again, that is like...
Not to sound trite. I'm not trying to sound like douchey or anything.
Yeah, so this creature that's like sentient and somehow its sentience, whatever that means, exceeds like the totality of mankind.
Yeah, like just its capacity for well-being. Its conscious state is like just pure goodness. We can also go to something less abstract. Like you could just go to a case of a human who... they're perfectly capable of well-being and suffering, but they can't comprehend the social contract. They're not, attempting to kill you and violating it in some egregious way. They just can't reciprocate it.
I guess the way that these are covered generally, and this might sound like a cop-out, but I think we generally treat these people as possessions of other people. So that's kind of how they're covered. Like you wouldn't go around and kill somebody that had the guardianship or whatever over the person or whatever, right?
Yep, the way to find out if it's a cop-out would just be to take the philosophy one to the property of ownership and see if now it's fine to kill them. So if you just remove the property that they're owned by somebody, like maybe they're, I don't know what thought experiment we have to create. I'm sure we can think of one. They're, in some isolated area or something. Is it okay to now just kill them?
I mean... So there are two ways that you can look at this. I guess on the surface level, I might say yes. The thing that might keep you from killing somebody like that, if we're talking about somebody that's mentally disabled, is that you wouldn't want to be killed if you became mentally disabled like that. So let's say, for instance, you have, so we'll create the hypothetical. You have a person that is beyond capability of like reasoning with other people, severely mentally disabled. The person that is their caretaker is dead, and this person is now wandering around. I still think that you could rationally advocate for the well-being of this person, because you could be in a situation such as theirs in some time as well. Maybe when you get elderly, right? When I become elderly, I don't want somebody to just kill me because I kind of lose my ability to reason. Yeah. So I could advocate for the protections of these people, because I would hope that others would advocate for them for me when I get older.
That was a good hypothetical. I like that one. Someone lost from their caregiver. And I totally agree with your reasoning there. I just don't see why you wouldn't apply the same thing to animals.
Because I don't think animals are ever going to be in a position to take care of me, or ever be in a position to help me do anything, or ever be in a position to reciprocate anything with me. They're just things that exist, like mountains or rocks.
Is it really, though, just about the fact that you want people to reciprocate it to you, or is it that you understand that, you know, there's actually something shitty about treating a person like that? Like, I mean... No, I don't think...
Again, I don't think that the action is inherently wrong, I guess, because you're doing something bad to a person. It's more the reason, getting back to why it would be wrong, would be because essentially you're allowing other people to treat you that way.
Because you're allowing other people to treat you that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So you're trying to say that the morality of the thing, it has to, like, you don't actually care about how beings are treated.
Yes.
You just care about how it's
ultimately self-serving. Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, because that actually would seem to propose an even more insane moral system to me. Because if you're going to say that it's actually only about how you're treated, then if we could propose a situation where a, you know, infinite, eternal Holocaust would somehow not have any impact on how you're treated, you'd have to bite the bullet on that.
Possibly, but that hypothetical sounds so extreme that I don't know if that could ever, like, come out.
You can say that, but if a hypothetical does expose a contradiction or a problem in your position, then it's a thing to deal with, though. We would both agree on that, right?
I guess. It's just that these are hypotheticals that you would construct that would arguably never happen in reality. I'm a big fan of using extreme hypotheticals to expose flaws in position, but you're literally hypothesizing that I could push some button to kill every other human and not be affected myself, and then I guess accumulate a bunch of wealth or something as a result of killing every other person.
Well, I'm sure we can find other examples of violating people in ways that pretty much everyone is going to find egregious, that wouldn't directly impact how others treat you, like stealthily murdering someone. We can add whatever conditions. I mean,
yeah, sure. But so the problem is that
wait. Sorry, let me come back fully though. It also, it doesn't depend on how probable the thing is though, because the point is just to show that it doesn't actually appear that your deepest value is in fact the reciprocation.
Well,
unless
I guess
you bite the bullet on that. If you bite the bullet on that, then I'll say sure, but it just sounds...
Well, I mean, I do believe that. I mean, we could. I'm not trying to put you on the spot because these are difficult hypotheticals to think of, but like generally, for most cases, I think that reciprocated values protect you from most things that even people of a different morality would consider egregious. So, for instance, any type of holocausting or any type of genocide, right? Well, if you agree to some sort of genocide, you could be genocided yourself someday, and you wouldn't really have a moral defense to that happening, right? It would literally just be that whoever's the strongest wins, you know, which isn't a situation most people I think want to be involved in. Same thing with things like slavery. Same thing with things like an ethno-state. Let's say I'm white and I want to join an ethno-state. Okay, cool. Well, now let's say everybody in my ethno-state says they want to get rid of everybody with blue eyes. Well, fuck. I mean, I picked the arbitrary trait of white skin. How am I supposed to defend my arbitrary trait of blue eyes? Like, I have no defense for it morally. I'm inconsistent now, right? I think that the reciprocated kind of system covers most bases for things that even people of conventional morality would consider egregious. But if you can think of hypotheticals where it wouldn't, beyond like I have one button I can push that will kill every other human being and somehow I won't die, I understand I'm putting you on the spot, but like I'd be interested in combating those hypotheticals.
Well, I mean, you can think shit up. Maybe we design some kind of AI and it can model other minds, and it models enough sentient minds to have more well-being contained in it than the totality of humanity, but it's just a little box.
Yeah, I guess I just don't care about the well-being or the sentience of anything else. Is it sentience or sentience? I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm sorry.
Sentience? I'd say sentience.
Okay, sentience.
Yeah, so again, this is the thing you'll notice with me. I won't deny a position is consistent if it's consistent. And if you're willing to kill the little box, that's consistent. But, you know, to for me, the purpose of a moral debate is you can't really prove someone logically wrong. You can just try to show that what they value is in conflict with something that is held by the vast majority of people. And most people think it's evil to destroy the universe box. So, I mean, that's just
sure, but then I would argue that if somebody existed in a universe above me and they had the ability to destroy the universe box, I would argue that I wouldn't want that to happen because I don't want my presence to be destroyed.
I think that would be further proving the point that it would be crazy to destroy the universe box.
I guess if somebody was in a universe box above me, yeah?
Yeah, but the whole point is there's something, I mean, surely you agree, again, from your subjective point of view, we're not talking about some objective morality, that there's something egregious about destroying the universe box.
No.
Isn't there? It contains
so, like, I feel,
so much well-being.
Yeah, but I just, I feel like these are kind of, I'm not accusing you of saying that these are attacks on character, but I mean, if we look at this from a point of view, if I'm just trying to win the argument, I'm always going to say yes. If I sincerely believe this, I'm going to say yes. So my position right now is indistinguishable between somebody that's actually arguing in good faith versus somebody engaging in motivated reasoning, right? So,
yeah.
So I don't know how to answer it. So, I mean, I would argue yes, of course, but even if I didn't really believe that, I would say yes here to maintain a consistent position. So I just don't see the point of asking that kind of question.
Well, okay, a few things. First of all, I'm not implying anything about you. I was very clear about my assessment of your character right at the start.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I would obviously say yes.
Wait, 1 sec, let me
yeah, go ahead.
I think. Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. You can always complete your things.
Yep, and you can cut me off if I'm interrupting you. That's fine. I talk a lot.
If I cut you off, you do the same. You're like, we're both like this. We're kind of nippy. Like, we want to like get in there.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. So I was really clear right at the start. I think you're a smart guy, and I think you would sooner be consistent and crazy than inconsistent. And I think that and again, I can't prove this, and I hope it doesn't offend you, but my personal opinion is I don't think you're a psychopath, and I think that you are pretty much just generating a consistent position and trying to make it sound as close to reasonable as possible. So, I mean, I've been straight up about that. I'm not trying to imply anything. It's out there what I think.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you asked, what's the point of asking those questions? Well, the point for me, I mean, this is why people ask me to debate you, and I say, well, I can debate Destiny if you want, but Richard already got him to bite the bullet on the genocide thing, and that's enough for the average person to say, that's a crazy moral system to me. The point for me of a moral debate, it's not a truth contest, it's a which subjective system makes the most sense. And if I can show that your system is inconsistent with something, the more widely held that thing is that your system is incompatible with, the better I'll be able to persuade everyone. So if I can show, for example, you'll crush the universe box, that's enough to make most people say that's a crazy position.
Sure. So I agree with your ability if you're looking for rhetoric to persuade other people, I think what you're doing is very effective. I think the easiest way to attack a eating philosophy, though, because you don't have to get esoteric with universe boxes, you can literally just say, how do you feel about the pet in your house? And then ask somebody, okay, how can you justify the existence of a dog or a cat that you treat with moral consideration and protect with legal moral consideration? Because if you kill somebody else's animal, there are special protections for that. It's not just a destruction of property. How can you defend that, but then be okay with the mass slaughtering and torturing, which it is, of cows and chickens and pigs, which can all be cuddly animals? I think that's the easiest position to attack, in my opinion, trying to expose hypocrisy.
Yeah, no, that's a good line of reasoning. What would your response be?
I don't care about dogs or cats at all. But no meat eater is comfortable making that admission. You'll never find a person.
No, I know, and I'm just saying it's kind of like the bullet biting on those things that's leading you into the philosophical territory, and that's why we're talking about universe boxes.
Yeah, but this is why I'm okay with my arguments. I think that most people, because of how most people construct their morality, I think that most people should be vegan. That most people are only meat eaters because they live with this kind of cognitive dissonance, and they don't really think about it or question it much. And I do this all the time on Reddit. Like, if you see, anytime you see the bullfighting threads that come up ever or whatever.
No, I don't, but I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, anytime bullfighting and shit comes up, like a bunch of people jump into those threads and get really fucking mad or whatever. And I'll always go in and like make fun of people. It's like, oh, really? What did you eat for lunch today? Like, man, that bull got killed in like 20 minutes, but you'll sit there and have a cow be impregnated for its entire fucking life in order to make milk for you, but you're okay with that, right? That if you point out these types of contradictions, meat eaters get very frustrated very quickly, and it's much more effective than saying, would you destroy a universe box? Not to make fun of your argument, I'm just saying.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
I'm never claiming that what I'm saying is the ultimate persuasion tool. Like we're having a philosophical conversation. If I'm trying to persuade the average person, I'm not talking about a universe box.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And speaking of people virtue signaling about animal abuse while simultaneously supporting it. Have you seen the AIU stuff going down lately?
What is the AIU stuff?
You know AIU, Atheism is Unstoppable?
No, who is that guy?
Oh, really? I figured he would be on your radar.
I had to stop interacting with all these fucking people on the internet. Are fucking crazy, dude. I took a big break.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. Well, it's the same kind of thing. He's a YouTuber. He's kind of on the periphery of the skeptosphere with Sargon and all those guys, although he's critical of them. Basically, long story short, he posted a video of some guy slapping a dog around, was virtue signaling about how horrible it is, and vegans point out the hypocrisy, and he's made a ton of retarded statements trying to say he's consistent, and now he's just kind of getting grilled by like Vegan Gains and a lot of others.
Yeah, I do this all the time when I see people get on, because people always get mad when like dogs and basically if an animal is, I think as humans we intuitively personify animals, or anthropomorphize maybe even would be the word, where we give them human characteristics. Look at the Suso the lion shit. Do you remember? Yeah, everybody got so fucking mad about it. There was like international outcry. Yeah, and look at and Harambe. Look at fucking did you, I don't know how much you follow like Twitch shit, but there was some girl on a Twitch stream that admitted to like killing a dog at a vet or whatever, and this
I saw that.
Yeah, this story actually got like some international traction. And I always point out that it's hilarious that people that are like fucking just step into any fucking farm, there are literally thousands and thousands of animals being tortured and killed, but nobody cares about them. They just care about dogs because that's what you see, like, pretty close.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's also that question there of, is it that they've been conditioned to care about the dogs or not to care about the cows?
I think that in general, as humans, I think we have a big proximity thing. If somebody gets killed in the Middle East, I don't really give a fuck. But if somebody dies close by, it's much more important, right?
I think that's true. And I thought you meant genetic proximity for a second, because I still think that they're close enough to us genetically. They look similar enough to us that like the facial emotions of lots of animals and their sounds actually do trip our like emotion registering areas of the brain and make us empathize. I think there is a level of natural empathy there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm pretty sure it's a well accepted fact that like kids that are torturing animals when growing up are pretty much on the radar to have some sort of a severe antisocial personality disorder growing up, and there's like a huge red flag.
So I'll say this basically, like when we have these debates, Destiny, the general principle is we're using the line drawing tool. There's like a lot of names for that tool. Like when I use it, I call it name the trait. Singer has his version of it called marginal cases. Porphyry, the old Greek philosopher, had a version. Someone who knows more about history would name a ton of other versions, I'm sure. But yeah, we're using the line drawing tool and then just basically sorting the people we debate into consistent or inconsistent. So like predictably, the vast majority fall into the category inconsistent. So you have like millennials saying it's okay and not okay to kill based on intelligence. You get Andy Worski saying it's okay and not okay to kill based on species. Yeah. You get free saying it's okay.
These are all these people, Andy Worski, roaming millennial. These are people that I would consider inadequate to have any conversations on philosophy. It sounds really arrogant, but these people.
He made the statement. He's in this Discord actually, and so is JF. A few of those guys are, but he made the statement in our debate. If we were logically consistent about everything, that would be the most retarded thing ever.
Yeah, that sounds about like an Andy Worski statement. Yeah.
So to complete the point though, so then there's a smaller group of people, and the characteristics that I see in common between these people are they're smart and they don't want to say something inconsistent live, and these people will stay consistent. And I'm counting you in these people will stay consistent even if it means saying something crazy. So
for sure,
we're basically sorting them into those two categories. JF did the same thing. He has a consistent anti-vegan position, but his position is basically that existence is more important than well-being. So in debate, I got to the reductio of, okay, so you're saying that if we had you and all of your descendants, you're just in a white room being tortured forever. Your every bone is being snapped in every location. Your skin's being boiled. Your eyes are being gouged out. There's no chance of escape. It's that forever. You would prefer that to not existing because you value existence more than well-being. And he said yes. So I don't deny that you can oppose veganism consistently from that position, but it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I might agree with him on a position like that, but for different reasons. If you ever argue with...
I know I've been on for...
it's fine, go ahead.
So I think yours is not that crazy. I think it is consistent. I think it's a bit out there. And here's what I think, Destiny. I think you can say that you're a psychopath, and I agree a psychopath can be consistent, but I think that most people, especially probably your own fans, would actually agree with me that you're probably not a fucking psychopath. So
sure,
I think
I don't like to argue like whether or not I am or am not, because I think it's kind of cringy to try to self-diagnose things that aren't even listed in the DSM anymore.
Sure.
For JF's moral positions, this is actually incredibly simple. Yeah, he values everything based on like that kind of like evolutionary psych point of view, like whether or not you exist and create more babies. If the answer is yes, it's moral. If the answer is no, it's like immoral. That's literally his entire. If you understand that, his whole argument like becomes like so simple for every topic to understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was debating him, we just reduced both of our positions for the sake of a debate to just two values in different prioritization. So we just had both well-being and existence, and we said, which do you care more about? And he said existence, and I pointed out the reductio, and he bit the bullet on it. So
yeah, for sure, yeah.
Like, that's a consistent position, but most people would call that crazy.
Sure,
and
definitely, yeah.
Will also call your position crazy, and
yes.
You can say, well, you know, it might be crazy, but I literally don't care, and this is how I honestly feel, so it's just fine for me. But I think most people don't believe you're a psychopath. So I
sure,
mean,
that's fine.
You can do that if you want, but like my honest thing to you is just, I just wish you would just be like, bro, you know, fuck this. We don't need to stab an animal. I just, you know, fuck it. I'm just gonna go vegan. Then I can argue against these fucks from position.
If you want to make
having you on our side,
most moral shit honestly doesn't matter. If I had to argue for like what position is better for all of mankind, the vegan argument is so much easier to win on other battlefields, because moral arguments are always esoteric. Like if you do it from like an environmental point of view, that's an unwinnable argument from the meat eater side. If you do it from like a diet or health point of view, it's an unwinnable argument from the meat eater side. Like I feel like the moral battleground is the hardest one to win, and it's also the least one cared about, because most people don't care about like philosophy of morals or ethics or whatever. Most people just kind of intuitively rationalize, you know, what is right and what is wrong, and then what is legal. As dumb as that seems to say, I think that's how most people figure out what is moral to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of vegans are, I mean, that's a specific sample of people, but are actually concerned with the moral question. Like, if you ask 100 vegans, I'm sure the majority are going to say they're ethical vegans.
Sure, but most vegans aren't the people you're trying to persuade, right?
No, I agree.
Yeah, and that's because in order to become a vegan, you have to overcome quite a bit of what would you call it? Like I guess utility, enjoyment of food. So there has to be something to push you over, because the default state right now in society is going to be non-vegan, right? Because consumption of animal products and everything is all around us. So yeah, it's not surprising that most vegans would need a good reason to be vegan, and the ethical argument is probably the easiest way to sway the people that would be swayed by the ethical argument. But for people that won't be swayed by the ethical argument, I think environmental and health are the two really easy ways, because these are debates that you're never winning as a meat eater.
Yeah, no. From a persuasion point of view, I totally agree. For me, I'm dealing with the ethics online, and I mean, it does get to a point with someone like you or someone like JF where there's not much point in discussing it further, because if your ultimate position at the end of the day is just, I'm going to justify it based on, you know, whatever quality, and I'm going to totally bite the bullet on saying it's fine to kill humans who lack that quality. You know, it's like, I mean, there's a point where it's just like, if we can't get you to empathize with the animal, if we can't get you to reject any of your own principles, it's like, okay, you can have that position if you want. And you're just the kind of person who, like, no offense, like, eventually when we get enough people, we're just going to have to legislate against you.
Yeah, sure. We already do legislate against some people's notions of morality with things like abortion and whatnot as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know really even what to say about them than that, because it would just be me trying to get you to empathize with the animals.
Sure.
Like, I mean,
and empathy is something that I inherently think is a bad trait. So yeah, I would never go that route.
Well, I'll do it for a minute though, actually.
Oh boy. Okay.
The thing is, like, when you're thinking of just like, you know, another human, like, are you? I'm just trying to, don't take this the wrong way. I'm just trying to get a picture of your. Are you honestly just fine with the thought of them just being, like, stabbed? Like, when you actually picture just shoving a knife under their fingernail or something, is that something that you are like, yeah, you know, I don't care.
Again, and I'm not... Okay, so I'll answer the question honestly, and I mean, I'll say that, like, this isn't something that I necessarily think about, but the problem is that, like, for the sake of winning the argument, like, even if this did bother me, I would still answer yes, right? There's no way for you as a third party to discern whether or not I'm being truthful or engaging in motivated reasoning, right? That's the only reason why these types of questions kind of make me uncomfortable, because there's no way to know if I'm answering honestly, you know? But I mean, yeah, I would argue that, like, these types of things don't inherently, like... I mean, like, I guess, like, if I were to imagine it happening to myself, it would make me uncomfortable, like, in a way that you kind of empathize with somebody, but it's just not how I tend to answer moral questions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get at the fact that, like, you seem to care about these things, and you don't seem to actually be that psychopathic.
I don't know whether or not I am a psycho or a sociopath. I don't know if these questions are that relevant when it's going to my moral system. And also, I acknowledge that even if I am or am not or whatever, that the way that I rationalize this is going to be something that is uncomfortable and undoable for a lot of people. That's the argument that I always make. That if you're a meat eater and you listen to my arguments and you get upset or uncomfortable, you probably shouldn't be a meat eater. Like that, I totally accept that.
Yeah. Well, that's why people say that you turn them vegan.
Sure, which is good. That's fine. I know a vegetarian friend that I respect a lot, and she said that after my conversation that she became vegan from vegetarian, because I think vegetarianism is the ultimate stupid position. It's worse than meat eating and worse than veganism. Like,
Yes,
it would be funny if you eventually became respected as like the top vegan activist.
That'll be great. That'll be really good.
Yeah, well, because you're saying what's the point of these questions? Well, I mean, it's really just the honest moral questions about what you care about and how you feel about other beings. That's really the only place I could ever even think to go with someone like you, because as far as the logic goes, it's like I don't deny your position is consistent. It's just I can show most people it's crazy. I can get most people off board with it, and then it's just a matter of persuading you. And when it comes to you, the only thing I can think is just I know that you deep down don't like the thought of just fucking with beings for no reason. And you can tell me that you are a psychopath or something and that's not how you feel, but I actually don't believe you.
Well, so I do agree with that. Like, I would go farther than I guess my positions aren't really, obviously they're not intuitive, but like if I was walking down the street and I saw somebody like torturing a dog, right? Like I might say from a rational point of view that I guess this is something that is morally neutral in act, but if I saw a person doing that, I would definitely stop and think like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this? Like if you're deriving entertainment or enjoyment out of this, it makes me think that you have the capacity to do similar things to people. Like that's just a really weird thing that you would get enjoyment out of. And I would argue the same for even if you were like dismembering dolls or Barbies or something, like I would question that person. It's not like, again, like a lot of people mistake my position for, like when I stop my stream at the end of the day, I go out looking for squirrels that I can skin alive because this is what I do for recreation because I think it's a morally righteous act or something. Like,
well, I think we can both agree that from a objective point of view that there's not anything wrong or right about anything in the universe. It's not like the universe has an opinion. It's subjective minds that have opinions. It's subjective minds that, bootstrap ethics based on some axiom or set of axioms. Like we don't disagree on any of that stuff.
I mean, I'd argue most people, I think, engage in motivated reasoning for everything. I think that most people, so I like 85, 90% plus people, will find something that feels good, and then you engage in a form of motivated reasoning to give yourself like a post hoc rationale for getting there. So people are born eating meat, so we make up whatever excuses we need to in order. And some people accuse me of doing this, I guess, which goes back to like, can you ever divine intent for my answers, right?
You know what I honestly think? I hate it's gotten into a weird situation where people have put so much pressure on you to admit that you're like, quote, being dishonest. And I think I've even probably done this, but it's now where it's just, I'm not implying that you're just some like easily influenced by social pressure, can't concede error kind of guy, but it's just like, now I feel like it's just now even harder for you to back off of it at all. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I'll back off a position if I think it's dumb. I mean, if somebody can help me out of my nihilistic black hole of no appreciation for anything intrinsically, then I mean, it'd be pretty easy to get to animal rights.
Well, I think we it just depends how you look at it, man. Because we can both agree on that whole from the universe perspective, nothing's ethical, nothing matters. But there's also like you actually care about things. You're like, I don't like the thought of suffering. I mean, you don't want to suffer, and when you see another person suffer, sure, you can just chalk it up to evolution and culture.
Yeah, but the
and all
problem
these
is I can never take I can't act on an unjustified thought, because if I say, well, intuitively, I don't like the thought of people suffering, and then I try to build something off of that. If somebody else says, intuitively, I don't like the thought of living next to black people, well, now I have to give them the same consideration to that idea, right?
Wait. Well, if it involves... there could be higher overriding values about not fucking with people that might stop you from doing that. But I'd say on a more basic level, you're always acting in some way in line with just your own values and what you care about. Like when you go to do something, you're doing what you want to do, right? So without even talking about whether it's moral or not, I mean, you don't want to see suffering. You don't want to cause suffering.
I mean, it depends on what type of suffering you're talking about. I mean,
just pointless suffering.
Yeah, but I mean, but then now we're in a discussion of utility. So, for instance, oh man, these are going to sound like really dumb things, but like a lot of people enjoy watching like boxing or UFC or American football, right? And these involve a great deal of suffering. A lot of people enjoy eating meat. This involves a great deal of suffering. A lot of people enjoy what? Yeah.
It's all consensual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
When you look at boxing, you don't look at boxing and feel so bad for the boxers. You're like, maybe they're stupid for going into something that's statistically likely to give them brain damage, but you understand it's consensual and you support their right to do it. It's
sure.
not
The consensual thing is a big part of it.
Get hurt unfairly, or like beaten, or like a pregnant woman get kicked or something.
Sure.
Just to go to an obvious example that'll trigger a moral response from anybody. Because to me, it's just like you value not fucking with things for no reason. So I just don't see why you wouldn't just live by that.
Sure, I mean, I do, but there is a reason to fuck with animals, and that's the utility gain from eating them, right?
Yeah, but I mean, do you really, like, when you, and again, like, I'm not even trying to challenge you that much on an intellectual level, because I've already told you I agree that your position is consistent. Like, it's not even about that anymore. It's more just, and you tell me when you want to stop this conversation too. It's more just about like what you honestly feel, because I mean, I'm just not persuaded that you actually don't care. Maybe you can persuade me, but it seems to me like you actually don't like the thought of just causing suffering for no good reason.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I don't like the thought of doing almost anything for no good reason. There has to be a utility gain from the action, otherwise I wouldn't choose the action, right?
I understand you're saying there's the utility of it, gives you the taste.
And I don't mean that in a tip-tippy kind of way. I just mean like when I choose to do things, I mean, rationally, I usually choose to do things that make me happy, and so that's the utility gain, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that the utility of the fact that it tastes good, it's good to just eat the meat. It's like, I have a hard time believing, if you really sit there and you take a minute and picture what it's like to be like stabbed in the throat, for example, I just don't believe that you actually think that is justified by biting into like a ham sandwich.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
if that's what you say. Because you're essentially trying to get me to betray my moral position by stating that I have some emotional discomfort with it, but I'm just never going to say that.
Are you saying you don't have an emotional discomfort with it?
I don't. But again, it's impossible for you to determine if I'm just saying that to win the argument or if I sincerely believe that. I know I keep going back to that, but
I'm aware that when you say something that sounds crazy, it could be that you're just saying something crazy to sound consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any winning. I've never said you can't. Lecter.
No, like I personally don't care. I guess I just don't. But I understand that I am relatively unique in those regards, and that if you do intuitively care or intrinsically care, that you should reconsider your moral position. And this is something that I've said a million times over, because the people that were uncomfortable, the most uncomfortable people with my arguments were usually meat eaters themselves. Because I got a lot of meat eaters that will send me emails being like, wow, you're so obsessed with being consistent. You say really retarded things. And it's like, okay, I mean, like, what do you want me to say, dude? Like, yeah, so I mean, yeah.
I think that you hit the nail on the head right there, because what you said was, if you feel an intuitive kind of empathy or problem with this, then that will actually probably lead you to veganism. I totally agree with that, but that's why me and you, we end up talking about, can I get you to have that base emotional concern for it? Because at the level of logic, it's like, well, you can say that for sure. It's just, at the level of logic, I don't deny that there's consistent positions. And when someone's seeming like, quote, totally crazy, then there's not necessarily a way to prove them wrong in the same way as there is with, like, prove if they try to state a false fact. And you can say, okay, well, we all accept this model called logic. And if what you're saying doesn't comport with logic, then then what you're saying is just wrong. It's not quite like that with morals. So,
sure.
When you express a consistent position and you really, really stick to it, then it's not going to be me debating you about whether your position is consistent or not, because the whole point of the debate is to expose to most people that the position is something they don't want to accept. And that's obviously been done.
Yep, I agree.
It's just trying to see if we can get that base emotional reaction. And it sounds like you kind of have it, but then you say it's not strong enough to act on.
Well, I mean, like I have some emotional reactions. I guess I don't usually to like animals getting killed, but I mean, like if somebody were to like point a gun at me, I would have an emotional reaction. I don't know.
Are you saying, just to be clear, that you don't have any reaction at all to an animal being killed?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, okay, because, again, it's hard to tell where you're coming from, but...
Listen, dude, I'm really fucked in the head, okay? When I was, like, fucking 12 years old, I spent all this fucking time on live leaks watching people getting killed and shit. I'm just a really fucked person, okay? I'm serious, okay? It's not a good route to go down, okay? I've seen every fucking gore video online, and this is shit that I watched for whatever reason, okay? I'm just fucked in the head, okay? This is not a good route to go down. It's like trying to find, like, well, what is the thing that Destiny's watched that will make him really uncomfortable, and then that's how I'm going to show that he's not actually being emotional, because it's like, you're not going to find that. It's just not a good road to go down, okay?
I think are you politely asking me not to go down it? Because if you
we can go down, but basically you're going to be positing more and more extreme situations, and I'm going to keep responding to no, and then it's at some point it's going to be like, okay, well, is this guy really just saying this shit to be consistent? Like, there's no way that he can really be comfortable with this, and it's like, I
just feel like there is a point of something you could say, or some amount of time interacting with you where eventually I might actually believe you're a sociopath.
Okay, maybe.
I don't know. Like, because it seems to me like you understand that you don't want to suffer, right? Like, let's just talk about this at like a kindergarten-ish level. Let's build it from basic.
Sure,
shit. Like,
thank you.
Like, no. I don't mean it like that.
No, I know.
Like,
go ahead.
Yeah. So, like, you agree you don't want to be fucked with. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want... Why would you not just want to hold that same idea for other beings? Like, no, don't go super logical on me, just on an emotional level. Like, why would you not want to share that with other beings?
Because I don't have the sensory input from them. I just don't care.
I hear what you're saying, and I get that you can't care as much about other beings
Well,
as
not at
you,
all. If
but-
somebody goes outside and gets, like, sunburned, I don't feel that pain. Like, it's not an intuitive thing. I think that's a
Me
process
either.
that requires some cognitive...
Me either, but I'd rather they don't get sunburnt. Or if we go to something more intense, like them getting stabbed, it's like I'd rather they don't get stabbed.
I mean, I guess I would say I'm indifferent to it. I mean, if they do, that sucks for them. I mean, and I definitely wouldn't want to get stabbed, but...
No, you'd say that. Like, so you're telling me... Because I'm not sure if everything you've said is consistent with totally not caring. You're telling me if you picture another person being tortured, like having like a bamboo shoot stuck up in between their fingernail and their skin, or like, you know, having their knee broken, or one of those horrible things, having their testicles like crushed or something like that doesn't it doesn't trigger anything in you to be like, I don't like the thought of that happening.
I guess, I mean, I wouldn't want it to happen to me. I feel like this is just making me... I feel like I'm the guy in, what's it called, The Stranger, where I'm on trial because I didn't like my mom's birthday or some shit. That Camus book or whatever. Fuck, dude. I mean, I embrace the absurdism of our existence, and I am indifferent to the suffering of those around me. But generally, I don't want them to suffer because I don't want to suffer. That's my emotional... I feel it deep inside my heart, okay?
I guess you can say it, and you've said it publicly a lot of times, so it's like it would be hard for you to back off it even if you weren't, because if there is a motivation for reasoning there, but I don't know if your reasoning is motivated.
I mean, maybe here's a possible contradiction to my position, okay? I felt this way about pretty much every single thing that I've ever interacted with, but I feel differently about my son, and I don't know why. That's an intuitive position that I never thought. When I got my ex-girlfriend pregnant, it was a total fucking accident, and we were on the verge of breaking up, and I pretty much had decided that I was never going to be involved in this kid's life. Well, we made the decision together because we were breaking it up. So he wasn't going to have my name. I didn't have anything in naming him or whatever. I really didn't care at all. And then I still helped her throughout the pregnancy and whatnot, because I'm going to have to pay child support, and I guess... I mean, like, it's technically both our kids or whatever, but I showed up at the hospital, and when he was born, I had an extreme emotional attachment to him for whatever reason, and I'm a very big part of my son's life. I see him 5 times a week or whatever. So I don't know, maybe there's, I guess, that might be a biological driver, but that's something that I have, I guess, like an emotional attachment to. Well,
I'm sure it's largely biological, but, I mean, let's just go with that, though. I mean, you can put yourself into his mind to some degree. You can picture what it's like, and you can picture that you don't want the experience of that mind to just be suffering.
No, I guess, but that's because he's my kid. Fuck that shit, yeah.
But is it really, when you look at your son, the reason you don't want him to suffer is just because of how it will affect your happiness? It's not that you look at him and you think you just care about his well-being?
Yeah, that is, yeah. I mean, because he's my kid. I guess I just don't do the thing where I guess like I guess this is what you would consider empathizing. This is like a cognitive process for me. It's not something that happens automatically. Like if I guess like I feel like I'm on trial as a human, but like if I'm watching a sad movie or whatever and somebody dies or whatever, it requires there are multiple steps I have to go through for that emotion to register as sadness. So if I'm watching what's that baby movie or not, the $1 Million Baby movie where she gets like paralyzed for her life, like the feeling isn't immediately that like, oh my god, she's paralyzed, it's so sad. It's more like, wow, this person has spent their entire life working so much for something and now they're paralyzed and now they're not going to be able to follow through with that anymore. Man, that really sucks. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's like a different process for most people or... What is it that sucks to you about it? Nothing sucks to you about it? Or well, because they put in so much work to do something and now all of that work is essentially wasted. Well, I mean, I think, did she win her fight or lose her fight? I mean, she had her big fight, but...
You feel like it would suck for her to lose all that work, or it just sucks...
Well, for anybody to put in that much work and for to get paralyzed, that would suck. That would be a shitty thing.
Aren't you empathizing on some level to think that?
Yeah, I guess maybe. If you consider that empathy, yeah, then sure. Then I do that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you do the same thing with your kid, too. I think that you can tell me if you really want that when you think about your kid suffering in some horrible way, that you just care because it would affect you. But I think that you actually care about your kid, to be totally honest. In the same way as like when you can look at that person in a movie and go, oh, all their going to waste, that would suck. That would suck if I were them and that were happening to me. You can look at your kid and have the same kind of empathy. That would suck if I were in his shoes and that were happening to me. It's like you feel what it would be like to be them.
Not really, I don't think. I mean, it's just because it's my kid. Like, I don't care about...
When you picture someone stabbing your kid, what comes to your mind?
Like, that's my kid. I wouldn't want my kid to get stabbed.
Okay, you picture your kid has broken their leg or something. What is on your mind?
I don't want his leg to be broken. He's not going to be able to walk. That's horrible. It's my kid.
Yeah, and why? When you think of why don't you want his leg to be broken? What is it about?
I mean, I want the quality of life for my child to be as good as possible.
And why though?
Because I guess I have a paternal instinct to protect my child. I don't know. Yeah,
because it seems to me like.
Here's a question. I'll ask you this. Can you spot the difference? I have a beautiful blue car outside. I wouldn't want anybody fucking with my car because it would shorten its lifespan or do anything as well. I mean, obviously the car is replaceable, so I don't care about it as much, but I would feel similarly, I guess, to something happening to that.
I think there could be some Seth, the programmer, says son car. That is the funny response, gotta admit. The son is irreplaceable, whereas the car is... Yeah. Well, and also just with the son in the car, it's like maybe there's some level to both of it'll affect you and make you feel shitty, but I think that with the son, there's a level of you're actually putting yourself in its position. It's not like something to be a car.
Whoa, in his position, not its position. You're the one sounding like the sociopath.
Did I gender the car?
Oh, you said its. Oh, I thought you were talking about my son, not the car. Sorry.
No, I'm not calling your child an it. That would be terrible. No, I'm just saying I think that you actually empathize with your son. And I think that you don't empathize with the car. I think the car is completely from your perspective, how would this affect me? I don't think that's how you think about your kid. Is it?
I don't know. I guess it's a really hard... I would have to do a lot of introspection to get to the root of these kinds of feelings.
I think you don't.
Okay.
That's my honest answer, Destiny.
Sure.
I think that you are able to empathize. I don't think you're a sociopath.
I don't think I'm a sociopath. I don't like to self-diagnose. Like, that's really cringy. I try not to say that I am. Just a lot of people give me the label, and if that helps you understand my positions, then I'll embrace it. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, I just think that you do have it in you to put yourself in the place of other beings, and I think that if you can just picture what it's like to, like, I mean, you can picture being in your son's shoes and you don't want any ill to come to him. I know it's a stretch, but you should be able to do the same thing with an animal. if you really see an animal right in front of you, like a cow or a dog or a cat or whatever, you can say, I don't mind the thought of it being stabbed, but just imagine someone just doing just horrible things to it, just like grabbing the knife and like just gouging its eye out or something, or like pulling its teeth out one by one. That wouldn't trigger a kind of like emotional response in you.
Maybe I just got too desensitized, like watching shitty videos when I was younger. I don't know. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't. I guess. Okay. I don't know.
Okay, even if not an intuitive emotional response, don't you at least not want that to happen because you can understand logically that that being doesn't want that to happen, and if you were them, you wouldn't want it to happen?
No, but for weird reasons, because I just don't see the difference between that thing versus any like inanimate object or whatever. I guess I don't draw a distinction there because I haven't. We haven't. Well, because this goes back to like I don't have a value on like being. I don't even know if I necessarily believe in that as a property. But this gets into really weird.
Are you telling me you're a philosophical zombie?
Yes.
No, you're not. You're not
No, I think that a philosophical zombie is indiscernible from an actual person. So like I would believe
that's the point of the experiment. I agree with that, but we know that we are not zombies. Every individual person knows they're not a zombie.
Are you familiar with like I guess like syntax and semantics or whatever?
Syntax being like the wording and semantics the meaning?
Something like that, yeah. So like I guess in a philosophical sense, like syntax is like saying dog and semantics is like picturing a dog and knowing what a dog is, right? People will make the argument that computers will only ever understand syntax but never understand semantics. And my position is that semantics are non-existent. It's just the confluence of a ton of different syntactical things. I don't know if two of those words were real words, but like syntax, like if you stack enough syntax onto each other, eventually you arrive at semantics, that one is derived from the other. But semantics isn't like a separate property or whatever. So like these are the views that I have of consciousness, right? I would argue that in any AI with sufficient complexity would have a consciousness or sentience that is indistinguishable from a human's consciousness or sentience.
Okay, let me reply on that. I totally agree, which is I was almost going to say originally when you were talking about a computer can't process semantics or something. It's like, well, a human can. And a human mind is just a collection of molecules in a particular order, and there's no reason why that order is limited to wetware. It could be done on hardware. So I don't deny that.
Sure. But this is a position that a lot of philosophers, at least a good number of philosophers disagree with, but should go ahead.
Well, I know, but they're retarded, because, I mean, it's obvious that...
I don't agree with you there. I just want to...
Wait, one second.
Okay.
1 second. Because it's clear that our brain. Well, I'm agreeing with what you just said.
I know, but I'm scared and saying, because this is a topic that I haven't read much into, and there are philosophers that are much smarter than me that would horribly disagree with my position. So if you think they're retarded, that's great. I just want to make sure that I'm separating myself from that statement. Okay.
I'll go further. I'll say severely and pathologically confused about reality, because if you're telling me that there's something special about particular molecules in the human brain, there's something particular about that couldn't be constructed mechanically. That just seems nuts to me. You could create a structure that's probably way more complex mechanically, actually.
Yeah, so I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
AI, but so we don't even diverge there. But one thing that I'll disagree with, this is just a technical thing, I'm sure you'll probably agree once I point it out. It's not necessarily, it might not be that complexity automatically entails sentience. It could be possible you could build a highly complex AI that's not actually sentient. It's just really smart. It could be that sentience has to come along for the ride. It's not totally clear. So we know that certain complex arrangements, like a human brain, we know that there would be certain hypothetical complex arrangements that you could do mechanically that would generate sentience, but it's also hypothetically possible that there's really complex structures that can do all the same intelligent tasks but aren't actually sentient. They don't have subjectivity.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're a little like off from the whole veganism thing.
And I think I'm going to eat soon because I'm really fucking hungry. Were there any other final thoughts or anything? That one guy really just left?
Yeah,
I think
he just shaking. He got scared.
He's just gone.
Damn. He seemed like he was hyped for it.
Before he leaves.
Oh boy. Yeah, go ahead if you want to.
How would you feel if your kid got taken away and turned into veal?
Pretty bad. Probably really bad.
Is it consistent to purchase dairy where they take away the cow's babies and turn them into veal?
No, I don't care about cows.
Yeah, I don't think it
doesn't
say
really
the same thing to whatever you say to him. And I think even with your kid, you're saying that it's just that you care about them. It's not even intuitive, some kind of empathy you're feeling.
Destiny, one thing that I was just kind of confused on, I found your channel through like the Vegan Gains debate, and then I started watching a lot of your content, and I like pretty much all of it aside from the vegan stuff. But you had a discussion with one of your fans on kind of like abortion and stuff like that, and you guys went over vegan. No, but I just what thing confused me is that you kind of like used what's it called, the social contract as a way of like for the justification, for the slaughter, because they can't reciprocate it. And so I was just like wondering like what would be kind of like the difference that you would apply for like fetuses, since
I would argue they have the potential for life, that they'll grow into something that can reciprocate all these values, and that I was once a fetus and I grew into something that could reciprocate these values. So that's why I would say fetuses are worthy of moral consideration. And can I just reiterate one fucking time, is that my personal moral system, I don't think that most people would be comfortable adopting this to its logical extremes, that most people intuitively are disgusted by the torture and murder of animals. And most people would even feel the same way against cows if they had to personally sit there and watch it. If you had to make most people watch their food being prepared, they probably would be vegan. I'm acknowledging this, okay? I'm not advocating that everybody adopt my moral position on this.
I was just asking.
I'd just like to throw in that I don't even think that you like your own system, but you can say otherwise.
Okay, all right.
Just one thing, with the abortion thing you're just talking about, how do you differentiate the fetus from, like, say you had DNA and you could turn that into a human, right? Like, we get to the point where you can do that. How would you differentiate that from the fetus?
Just having a DNA, or?
Yeah, like say you took some of my DNA and you could put it into a machine and it creates a human, right? So do you value that DNA the same way you'd value a fetus? So like, you shouldn't destroy the DNA.
I mean, if it was in the process of growing into something, yeah, I would say yeah. Like if you created a fetus out of that DNA.
So if it's already in the process.
So you're valuing already in the process. And
so I grant moral.
To grow to reciprocate.
Yeah, I grant moral consideration to the zygote, right? When the egg and the sperm or semen, whatever thing, when they combine and become one organism that begins to grow, like that is what I would mark as the beginning of your existence.
Because you're valuing that because it'll go to reciprocate, right?
Sure. Well, yeah.
Then like my DNA could go to reciprocate as well if I put it in a cloning vat or something. Sure. Yeah. So then would you value, or like you'd say like, oh, you shouldn't destroy any DNA by that as well?
I don't think so. If it's like just a piece of DNA outside of an environment, I don't think that would reasonably grow into anything else. But if you made that DNA in a cloning vat or put it into something that became a fetus, then at the point
you're saying the fetus has the potential to become something that will reciprocate your moral values, right? Because you don't know whether it will or it won't.
Well, potential also has really weird things. Like if you agree with
my DNA has the potential.
It's like if you agree with sentient AI, you can even get to things like, well, what exactly is the point where something has potential? Clearly, inanimate matter has potential to become sentient, and what if someone wills to make it into it? Does it then just bricks of steel gain value? It seems a little crazy.
We have to destroy the planet.
Before you dip out of here, because I'm sure you got to go. Seth, do you feel like having a go at Destiny?
Oh boy. Wait, are we going to argue about Dragon Ball GT and how it's superior to...
While he types Destiny, can I ask you a quick question? Basically, when you say you don't believe in sentience, like, what do you specifically mean?
These arguments get really esoteric, but I don't necessarily know if I believe that like consciousness is like a special property that you develop at some point in time, rather than just consciousness is just like, this gets really complicated. Like, I guess like basically that any process, or if you create a thing and then you give it things that it can operate, like limbs or whatever, and that if you give it the ability to perceive sensations, so things like sight, vision, vision, sound, touch, or whatever, that if you give it the ability to decide which one of these decisions is better than the other, that something that we currently call consciousness will necessarily arise out of that every time. But I don't think that consciousness is like a special property or anything that makes it unique or worthy of more consideration. That's just, consciousness is just something that happens to things that take in senses and then have to make decisions. It is kind of like my point of view on that.
All right. Well, I guess if you got to dip out, you got to dip. Well, it's good talking to you. You're always welcome in Destiny, and I hope that one day you just eat a ton of magic mushrooms and connect with
Sure thing, dude. I'll think about it. If that one ever comes back, the question that I've always wanted to, this is like my new path of attack on an ethnostate, dude. I want to know how ethnostates pick the traits that they choose for their ethnostate that makes them defensible when a new ethnostate is created. That's like my new question for ethnostate people. So I kind of hinted on that. What?
It's a really good question.
I'm following what you're saying right there.
You actually are following or aren't following?
Are not following.
Oh, okay. So say, for instance, I create an ethnostate and I pick trait X. Once I've created that ethnostate, let's say people in that ethnostate wanted to do like X prime or wanted to do trait Y or something, right? What defense do I have when I say, no, I don't want that to happen? So I kind of gave this example earlier, right? Like, let's say we create an ethnostate. Yeah, we create an ethnostate based on white skin, and now we've got all the white people. Then somebody says, well, I only want people with blonde hair or people that are of a certain height or people that are whatever. How do I say, well, no, I don't want you to do that when I was already okay with the previous ethnostate? What morally consistent argument can I give?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
It's the same with all these things, like taking away the like free speech and stuff. It's like once you do it to someone else, then you create the license for them to do it. So I mean, I don't think you ever want to. That's like creating the Ring of Sauron. You just don't do that. Bad idea.
All right.
Well,
okay.
I mean, I think that might be it for us for now. I mean, you can hang around if you want to.
I love you guys.
Continue to make great content.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Thanks for not doxing me.
Destiny, I did one of my favorite. I love when you roasted No Bullshit. That was very entertaining.
And Tonka.
Tonka's a fucking retard.
Not that that's very difficult to do, but it was still.
How can you guys hate people like Tonka No Bullshit and Andy Worski's in here? That's the real question. Now we want to talk about consistency. That's the real question.
I think of Tonka as like a slightly smarter version of No Bullshit.
Wait, sorry, what is it about them being in the server?
Oh no, I was just curious how you guys tolerate somebody like Andy Worski, but then think that people like No Bullshit.
They're not that active in here,
okay.
And No Bullshit is really fucking retarded. I'm just
Do you guys get like a lot of SJW-esque people in here? Or?
It's we did a straw poll earlier. It's mostly centrist, and there's pretty balanced far left and far right.
When you say centrist, what does that mean?
Big brain centrist.
No, I just mean when people were asked to self-identify, they just picked the centrist box. We didn't have it like hashed out.
Because it feels to me like that centrist position is pretty fucking far right-leaning in a lot of cases. So I'm just like, I would consider myself honestly a centrist, but I know a lot of people consider me very far left. So I'm not sure.
I know where you're coming from.
Let's see if I'm a centrist. What makes someone a centrist?
Well, so like, for instance, I'm anti-abortion and I'm very much pro-Second Amendment, but I'm also very pro-capitalism, but I'm also very pro, like, redistribution of wealth if it can be shown to have positive effects, so things like welfare or socialized medicine or whatever, but I'm also pro, like, open border. Like, I have a lot of positions that could be adopted by the left or right, so I would say that's center-leaning, but a lot of people seem to just call themselves centrist, and then they're, like, anti-immigration, pro-traditional values, anti-socialized everything, and it's like, okay, well, you're pretty much just, like, somebody that's right-leaning, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm with abortion, I have a bit of a mixed bag. It's like I care about the sentience, so I consider it initially fine, and then I believe that it becomes immoral once it's a sentient being.
Do you like capitalism?
Yeah, I like capitalism, but I could elaborate on that. I'm for the Second Amendment, but I draw a line at wherever you can argue is necessary for self-defense in like a reasonable situation. And with capitalism, it's like you can either start from a controlled economy and add freedom, or start from a free economy and add degrees of control. An economy is like an ecosystem. It's crazy to think you can control it totally, so that's a bad starting position. So for me, it's start from freedom, add degrees of control. I'm for like monopoly busting laws or anything like that. I like socialized medicine, but I also believe we should have a parallel private system because there's no good reason to tell two consenting individuals they can't exchange money for a service.
Gotcha. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I only asked about the SJW thing because I thought there'd be more in here, but I noticed you guys are using a lot of ableist slurs, so yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, we're kind of like pretty overall anti-SJW, but that's not because most of us are right necessarily. It's just like the center doesn't like the SJWs, or really the alt-right, to be honest.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Although
Okay.
there's some of both in here. Do I meet your criteria for a centrist from what you've heard so far?
Oh, I don't know. I stopped using political labels a long time ago. I was just curious.
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is I don't think it's some massively right-leaning server that's calling itself centrist. I think it's actually people who are split.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I love you guys. It's been fun. Stay safe, okay?
Yeah, man. Thanks for the discussion. See you later.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.